Can you hear me?
I have something to say.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of Project Shadow. My name's Charlie. You might know me better as sci-fi fantasy writer C.E. Dorset. Especially if you're reading my new book, Crucify My Love, which is out in paperback, in Kindle, and an audio podcast. Yeah. Just look for Mask of the Gods wherever you're listening to me, and hopefully it's there. If it's not, let me know, and I'll fix that. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about kind of a personal topic, but also for anybody who's interested in starting a podcast. Why is this podcast daily? And I have a lot of thoughts about that, and I wanted to share them with you because, I like being open and honest, and I think this is an interesting discussion. So, before we get started, if you haven't already, hit like on this episode or this podcast. If the app that you're listening to me on allows you to rate it, please do. That helps out a lot. Tells the algorithms to share me with more people, and that is awesome. And I would really like that. So, and thank you to everybody who already has. So, why am I doing a daily podcast again? This is a question that comes up a lot. Probably mostly in my own head when I'm looking at my very busy schedule and all the things that I'm wanting to do. Why is this podcast daily? Because this is actually the third podcast that I do. I do one podcast on spirituality, I do the audiobook podcast, and I do this one. All the while keeping as active as I can on social media, plotting a completely new world and series, editing further books that are already done, and writing the next book in the Mask of the Gods series. I do quite a bit. Plus, we own a restaurant. So why is this podcast daily? And it's not to get the listens. I'm going to be very open and honest about that because, the more I think about it, the more I realize that this podcast would probably be a lot more successful than it is if it were weekly. Because, 30 minutes a week is a lot easier to ask from people than 30 minutes a day, which is what I generally do. But then again, I don't expect everybody who subscribes to this podcast to listen to every episode that I do. And looking at my stats, it's pretty clear that they don't. And I'm fine with that. The reason I do this daily is because I am a terrible blogger. I am. I'm really bad at it. I would love to be better. It's something that is always perpetually on my to-do list, is start blogging again, do it more regularly, build yourself back up, get those stories out, get all those things that are inside your head out into the world so that they're not just sitting around in your head, rumbling around. But I'm bad at it. And when I say that I'm bad at it, I get very persnickety about my own writing. And I have dozens of blog posts that I've written that are just sitting around, languishing, waiting for me to figure out what it is that I need to do to fix them before I send them out into the world. But at the same time, I've got a lot of stuff that I want to talk about. And this is probably just an error in my own way of thinking, brought about by my age and the fact that this is how I used to blog when I blogged several times a day, regularly back in the day. A blog post for me needs to have a certain finality of thought, whereas a podcast, at least the podcasts that I enjoy listening to, are much more conversational and about an idea and don't need to have that kind of wrap up and conclusion. So an idea that I would want to discuss and try to put it out there and get ideas and comments and really start a conversation on, to me, podcasting is the best place to do that because I can air out my thoughts on a given topic in a coherent and cogent way, in a conversational way that is hopefully at least marginally funny, because I have a very dry sense of humor. And, well, I've learned over the years that my sense of humor comes over a lot better over audio than it does in text, though I would be amazed if anybody got the jokes that I do make, just because my sense of humor is very dry. But in sitting down every day and doing this show and talking to you all who are out there listening, it is an important part of my day. It gives me a chance to rally my thoughts. It gives me a chance to say the things that I want to say and talk about all of the topics that I want to talk about. That, honestly, if I tried to take this to a weekly format, it would drive me crazy because, like, just look at the episodes that I did last week. Is the weekly episode going to be about She-Ra? Is it going to be about How to Train Your Dragons? Is it going to be about what? I talked about a lot of things. Is it going to be the endless rant on Game of Thrones? And let's be honest, that's probably the only episode that I would have done, because I did 2 episodes about it because it was something that was really weighing on my mind. And I wouldn't find that fulfilling. And so to me, that's the beauty of podcasting. And I highly recommend it for anybody who is interested in just kind of sharing themselves and their thoughts with the world. I started podcasting when it was really tricksy to do, and have gone through various podcast hosts over the years. I started back with Podshow, over 10 years ago, I think, when I first started doing this. I think it was 2007 when I started the podcast. And so that would be almost 12 years ago. And, over the years, I've taken it more seriously, less seriously, run it like a business, not run it like a business. At one point, I was running, I think, 9 podcasts concurrently because I really like talking and I like the format. And that led to an insane period of burnout and self-destructive mind breaking. So I've learned not to do that. But since I've come back to podcasting, it's been so wonderfully rewarding to be able to sit down and talk with an audience, some of strangers and some of as friends, and some as people that I've started getting to know over the time because you've connected with me on various other social media platforms, and primarily on Twitter. And it makes me really happy to get to know you people, because to me, that's what this is all about, is connecting and starting a community and having a place where all of the weird thoughts that I have in my head can be shared with people that have either similar or different mindsets. So we can learn from one another and make the world a better place. When I say that this podcast is about revealing unseen wonder, that's what, for me, it's all about. And one of the reasons why I chose to actually do this episode today and kind of lift up the curtain and go a little behind the scenes, because honestly, a lot of advice that comes my way is that I should be doing an interview show. And I'm not against that, and I might try to line up some interviews. I've done that in the past, and it can be fun. But it's not entirely what I want. And that's the beauty of podcasting. So more than anything in this episode, I just want to encourage people that if you want to start a podcast, don't look at how many people are listening. Look at what you want to do, what you want to share, and let your voice be heard. Because that's the beauty of this whole thing that we're doing here. Over the last couple months, my Twitter following has grown, and I've gotten to almost 3,000 followers, and my engagement stats, for me at least, are just insane. Like, I'm looking at them when I look at my analytics, and it kind of freaks me out that people are replying and sharing and really getting to have good conversations about a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here. And that just makes me smile, because for me, at least, this is all about the conversation. This is all about the chance for us to hear ideas that are not necessarily our own, and to do it in a non-confrontational, not hateful, not cynical kind of a way. Because I don't find that as often as I used to online. Cynicism and snarkiness have kind of become the lingua franca of the internet, and while they can be entertaining from time to time, and I'm no stranger to sarcasm and snark, especially if you've listened to this podcast, you know that. But there is a place for just talking about what we love, what makes us imagine a better world, and what makes us want to come together in community and do things together. And that is the glory of the podcast. That here, in this day and age, there is a technology whereby someone like me, who lives in the middle of America's heartland, in a very small town, in a very small county, especially compared to places that I've lived in my life. I mean, there's only 40,000 people in the entire county where I live. You know, that's not a lot of people. And it's not a small county. But here I am, out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm able to talk to the world. I'm able to be honest and share my sincere thoughts on anything that I feel fits the mandate of this show, on this show. And I wish more people did that. One of the things that this is where I get to be an old fuddy-duddy, but one of the things that I've been missing more and more, and over the years, and one of the things that has caused me to unsubscribe to a lot of podcasts that I used to listen to all the time, is as the industry has become an industry, and as people are looking to become more and more professional, they're bleeding out a lot of the fun, a lot of the openness, a lot of the little quirks that made podcasting interesting to me in the first place. You know, when I was a kid, I wanted to do radio, and this, for me, is my chance to do that. And what made radio fun, the few times I did get to DJ on the radio, was getting to have that one-on-one conversation with an audience, warts and all. If I made mistakes, I made mistakes. Somebody would call me out on it. I would address it. At some point, there would be much laughter, and we would go on with life. Because there was a naturalness to the format that just made it fun. Now, I'm not saying that there's not room for a polished podcast or for a professional podcast, and there is a place for that. But I want podcasting to stay wild. I want it to look like the olden days, where people are just talking. And over the years, I've gotten a lot better about this. I mean, I have a really nice microphone that I spent my hard-earned money on, that you all so graciously provide, because I want the audio to sound good. I learned tips and tricks to make the audio as good as it can possibly be. So yeah, I'm wanting to improve my craft, and I want everything to sound and feel and be as good and as high quality as it can be. But there's a difference between going for quality and homogenizing as an industry. And this, to me, is it's what I feel like happens when I want to use the term sellout. It's not so much that somebody decided that they want to have money. I mean, we've run ads on this podcast, and I ask if you have any money to join the project via the community support system that we have set up. Making money is not selling out. It's compromising your vision, that is. And so that to me is the most important thing that we can do, is stay true to who we are and stay true to the things that we love. I like writing. I like selling books. I like doing podcasts. I'm oddly enjoying the torturous experience of editing my voice to do the audiobook podcast for Mask of the Gods. I enjoyed making the theme song for this podcast, and for all of the podcasts I do, I made the music that is used in the intros. And that's something that I deeply enjoy doing. But what gets me is when we, and don't think that I'm saying this to like call somebody out. I am not calling anyone out in particular. But I see this more and more from people that are looking at this as a possible way to make an income. And I think it is one. It's a viable way to make an income. But money corrupts everything. And that's not what sells out. That's not what causes people to sell out. People think it's the money. I think it's the pressure to fit in. See, I'm one of those people that I like to let my freak flag fly. I like idiosyncrasy. I can't even say the word idiosyncrasy. I like eccentricity. I like it when people are different. I like it when things are what they are. To me, this is one of the most amazing things about the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, that they can be as idiosyncratic and bizarre as they are, that, only James Gunn could make movies that strange and yet so heartfelt at the same time. Yet somehow he's able to do that within the giant Disney machine that owns Marvel. That's amazing. It's wonderful, and it's a great thing. But that's really the trick to me when anything becomes an industry. Because you can see this with social media. I remember back in the day when I got my first invite to Twitter so long ago, when it was still a project from Odeo. And nobody knew what to do with it, and nobody knew what social media was. And it wasn't a marketing channel. It was a place for people to talk. It was a place for people to hang out. And it was kind of the collective water cooler for a bunch of us who worked alone and didn't have companions during the day for us to kind of catch up and talk. And for some of us, we've kind of kept that spirit alive, but you can really see the marketing as it's bled into making social media what it is today. And so many people look at it as just a marketing channel, and they're no fun. Hopefully I haven't done that with my own stuff, be it on Instagram or Twitter. I try my best to just be me. Because that's what the world needs. That's what we all need to be looking for and trying to find. I don't want the perfect book. I want the book that shows me a world that's different and interesting and exciting, and shows it to me from a perspective that I just don't have. It's one of the reasons why I loved the Aftermath books that Chuck Wendig did, and wished that Star Wars hadn't cut ties to him, because I was excited to see what he did next. Because he has such a wonderful perspective and is a very idiosyncratic writer, even though he's writing characters and settings that are very familiar to us. He was able to do it in a way that brought them to life in unexpected fashion. And that, for me, needs to be our goal, no matter what we're doing, whether we're musicians or singers or chefs or podcasters or bloggers or writers or whatever. Keeping that individuality, keeping that sense of who and what you are and why you're doing the thing, that is power. That is in the end, what makes you unique and what makes you worth listening to. And I'm not saying that this is why people have to listen to me, because I don't honestly know why people listen to me. I'm somebody who likes to talk, and so I do. And people listen for some reason. I don't know why people respond to me on Twitter. I think my ideas are weird and off, and I don't know. But people respond to them. And that makes me feel less alone, because I'm able to have these conversations. And after all, that to me is what we need more than anything else. You know, when I started doing this podcast, it was me talking about the news of the day and what was going on with various franchises and this, that, and the other. And that became boring, because if you really pay attention to it, it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's the same hype cycle for every piece of media. And that's not fun. I want to talk about what happened and why it happened and what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it, and really dig in and not be beholden to the press releases that I get in my inbox. Now, if you want to do that other show, that's not selling out, and it wasn't selling out when I was doing it. Like I said, it's not about the money, it's not about the format. And I think that's where people get lost in this whole realm of what does it mean to sell out. What it means to sell out is to compromise your vision in hopes of gaining the approval of someone you see as your superior. Whether that be the company that told you to edit your book in a particular way so it can hit your target demographic better, or whether it's you telling yourself that. It doesn't matter if you make $1 million or a penny or nothing. When you're willing to compromise who and what you are to try to get successful, to try to get money, power, prestige, fame, whatever your end goal is, that's selling out. And that's what I see a lot of podcasting trying to be about. Because there are a lot of blogs out there. There are a lot of experts out there that are trying to homogenize this field. Because once it becomes homogenized, once it becomes like television or like radio, then it's easy to cookie cutter a show. It's easy to slap something together and put it out cheaply and make money off of it, because there's a format that is expected. And to me, that's what we have to fight against. That's the thing that will end podcasting as having any relevance. You know, I leave my misstatements like that in because they're honest. You know, I don't want to come off as perfect. Now, if I were to listen to the podcasting advice that I get, I would edit those out and I would do a take after take after take to make sure I sounded professional and serious and accomplished and like somebody who should be listened to. I would rather be me and have people who listen to me because they're interested in what I have to say than to jump through hoops to convince someone that I am worthy of being listened to. And that's the glory of the world that we live in right now. I can write my books, I can do my art, I can do my podcast, and I can be me the whole time. And you can too. So what is the purpose of doing a daily podcast? I do it because I want to. Because it feels good. Because I enjoy it. Yeah, that's selfish. But I have a lot of anxiety problems and depression problems and chronic pain. And there are days when I don't feel like doing or accomplishing anything. But I can set the computer up, I can turn the mic on, and I can talk to you wonderful people about what's going on in the world or in my own head, and have that conversation. And when I'm done, I feel like I did something. I was artistic. I was creative. I have a sense of accomplishment that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't done it. So I hope you enjoy the podcast that I do. I hope you like the work that I do. But like Lizzo says, I don't do this for you. And if you're a creative person in any way, you need to get that mantra in your head. Because once you start doing your work for other people, then it truly becomes work. Be creative for the reward of being creative. It's fun having these conversations. It's fun doing this podcast. It's fun hanging out on social media with you all. It's fun writing the stories and editing them. And as much as I can't stand the sound of my own voice, even editing those podcasts so you can hear the audiobook is fun. Hone your craft. Focus on what brings you fulfillment. Because I promise you, somewhere out there in this world, it may be 5 people, it may be 5 million people, it may be 1 billion people, you never know. But somewhere out there, there's someone who needs whatever it is that you're bringing to the world. And as I see so many people on social media talking about how frustrated they are being called a freak, and for being different, and for not just kowtowing to the various needs of the various industries, and just popping out the stories that are expected of them. Don't be frustrated. Don't feel pain in that. Be yourself. In all this, be yourself. And if you can be honest with who you are in your work and in your life, it will find someone, and maybe just one. But I don't know, maybe I'm just sappy. To me, that's enough. So that's why I do this podcast daily, and why I think you should too. And now, I'm not saying you have to do a daily podcast. I'm saying you have to do you. That could be weekly. That could be monthly. That could be drawing a picture. Whatever it is, whatever your creative outlets are, find them, utilize them, and then share with the world. Because, and I'm going to say this as cheesy as it is, sharing is caring. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of this. I did. Just to be selfish again, I did. If you like this podcast and you haven't already, and the app that you're listening to me on allows you to rate the episode or the podcast, please do. Helps me out a lot. Tells the algorithms to share me with more people. If you've got $1 or $2 you can throw my way, in the show notes you'll see a link to community support, or you can go to anchor.fm/Project Shadow and you'll see the community support link there. If you click that, you can join the project at the $1, $5, or $10 a month levels. Helps me out a lot. Helps me do everything that I do. And probably going forward, it's probably going to be the main way I get supported, because I think in June, I'm going to take my stuff out of Kindle Unlimited because I don't like the exclusivity. We'll see. Thinking about that. Love to talk to you all about that more. That money does really help me out a lot. And thank you to everybody who does do that. If you don't have any money right now, that's fine. Trust me. I understand being broke. I really, really do. It's my default position. I bought 2 chairs at a garage sale the other day for $12 and then fretted all day over whether or not I spent too much. So yeah, I understand. Not because they were crappy. They're really nice chairs. It's just Man, I spent $12. Should I have spent that on chairs? Yeah, anyway, if you don't have the money or don't feel like giving right now, I understand. Just if you think you know somebody that might like this show, please share it. That helps out a bunch too. If you want to connect with me, Twitter is a great place. I'm there a lot. I'm also on Instagram. I'm CE Dorset on both. You can connect with me there. I'm trying to get better about Instagram. I'm terrible about it. I'm actually posting daily for the most part, but let me know. I'd like to be better. If you want to find links to everything that I do, you can head over to projectshadow.com, find links to everything there. If you want to check out my other podcast, Mask of the Gods, that'd make me happy too. So anywho, until next time, don't forget, have the fun. Bye.